Goose Chasers, what is up? Happy Wednesday to everybody. How's everybody doing? It is officially May. What in the earth, on earth, is happening? Why is time flying by so quickly? I don't know, but it is. Welcome back to another episode of Goose Chasing. We've got a great show prepared for you today, and we didn't even really prepare for it. We just kind of, this is Goose Chase. We're telling stories. We're on the goose chase of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what it is. But I had a fabulous and a successful weekend in the turkey woods, and I want to talk about it with you guys. I want to talk about it. So that's what we're going to be doing today, going over a little bit of turkey hunting, goose chasing from your boy. It was an eventful hunt this past Saturday, but the hunt started a couple Saturdays ago on opening day. It started before that. I've been down here in Tennessee for 2 years now, and when I first moved down here, I accepted the challenge that it was going to be difficult finding hunting land, and it was going to be it was just going to be different. It was going to be different than being at home. Being at home in Ohio, I've got multiple different spots to go to within 5, 10, 15 minutes of my house. Up in New York, we've got obviously Camp Cutlet, a couple hundred acres of prime whitetail hunting habitat, and that's only a couple hours away from us. So it was very easy, in Ohio, to be able to find not really even find hunting land, but just to be able to grab my shit, throw it in the truck, and go hunt. And here, it's been different. And honestly, I accepted that challenge moving down here, not really knowing what to expect, but it's been a lot more difficult than I actually expected. Tennessee is a very coveted place to hunt, whether it's deer, turkey, ducks, you name it. It's an outdoor place here, and the land is expensive. The land leases are expensive. A lot of people hunt down here, so it's very difficult to find private land to get on. There's public land all around, obviously, which I've explored, but I guess going back to it, like taking yourself out of your home state, out of your comfort zone, out of like the places that you grew up and that you've been hunting for your whole life is hard. It kind of puts you back to ground zero. It's definitely humbling in the fact that, you kind of put yourself probably in a position where a lot of hunters are year in and year out, where they're trying to actually just find somewhere to hunt, let alone actually be able to hunt, period. So that's kind of the position I was in a couple years ago. It took me literally a full year to find a good spot to hunt, and I've got a small lease down here in Tennessee now. It's literally only 25 acres, but it hunts a lot bigger than that because of how thick it is, because of the way that the terrain is, and the surrounding properties are all a lot of just big 100, 200 acre properties, ag land, big timber, and so just the habitat in and around there is awesome, and I'm blessed to be able to have that little 25 acre spot that I can just, on any given day, I can just go to, I can set up, and I can hunt. I can enjoy what I love to do. Is it the end all be all? No. Is it 1,000 acres in Kansas? No. But for me, just the ability to get out and do what I do in a spot where I know that I can have some action, in a spot that I can kind of call my own, and be able to set up trail cameras, do scouting while I'm not there, put a tree stand up and leave it there, build a little man-made blind or whatever for turkey hunting, and have a spot to just be able to go to, set up my camera equipment, and document what I love to do. That's extremely important to me, and I found that piece of property. I've built a relationship with the landowner, and it's been pretty awesome ever since. Now, this past deer season was I guess a tough deer season down there. I saw a good amount of deer. I had a few really good bucks down there, and saw them a couple times while I was actually in the woods hunting, but just could never catch up to them in bow range. But now that turkey season is here and we've kind of shifted as the late winter started to dissipate and as spring started to sprang on us, I started moving my cameras around, kind of focusing more on the turkey activity as opposed to the deer activity. And I started getting pictures of birds and stuff right away. And the landowner said last year when I first got the lease, he's like, there's a lot of deer here, but there's a ton of turkeys. So I was really looking forward to this spring because I missed last spring at this particular spot. And so I started running cameras, was getting pictures of birds, pretty fired up. I actually went down there to shuffle some cameras around probably a week and a half or so before turkey season started. And when I was down there, I was like, I want to find a couple spots that I can just kind of make like makeshift blinds and, cut a couple cedar branches, stack them up, and so that I have a little cover, but basically so that I kind of have like a home base to go to if I need to when I'm running and gunning, because self-filming while you're turkey hunting is very difficult. You would think it would be easier turkey hunting. You're kind of up and down, running, gunning, whatever, but there's so much more to carry between the decoys, your calls, camera equipment, your gun. And if you're doing it by yourself, like it's not easy. It's not easy. Sometimes it's not fun. Sometimes it's not conducive to actually getting a bird because you are, at least for me, I'm film first. So I'm going to capture the footage before I kill the bird. That's just how I am. You guys know that. Anybody who's been following us long enough knows that. I've taken criticism for that, or we've taken criticism for that, but we wouldn't be here providing you with any sort of content if we went about it any other way. It's a discipline that you have to have. There's no excuses. There's no like, oh, I'll leave the camera home, this day, or I'll kind of half-ass it one day. No, you're either all in or you're not in at all. That's what it is. We get a lot of people that ask us all the time, what do I need to do? How can I get into filming? I want to film my own hunts. I want to do this for a career, this and that, whatever. Well, the first step you need to take is you need to get camera equipment, and you need to be disciplined enough to say, no matter what happens, no matter the scenario, no matter if it's a 160-inch buck or not, I am not pulling the trigger or getting it, or I'm not finishing the deal unless it's on camera. Now, mind you that we have multiple different cameras running at once, so we have multiple different angles. If the main camera angle for some reason isn't perfect or doesn't get on the deer, and we have our other multiple angles going, the second angles, POV cameras, GoPros, that sort of thing, that's the exception. I'm going to capture the experience first and foremost, and I'm also a hunter, so I'm going to take a shot. If the cameras are going, I'm going to take a shot. I'm not like a perfectionist by any means, but regardless, getting back to this property is I needed a couple spots that I knew that I could go to, get the decoys out, get my camera set up in a timely manner so that I could even have an opportunity to self-film this hunt successfully. So as I was down there doing that a week and a half or so before the season, I spent probably 3 or 4 hours down there moving cameras around and making these. I made 2 little makeshift man-made blinds, and as I'm doing all that, literally birds are gobbling in every direction. And it's literally like 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon, whatever. I was down there for a couple hours. It was mid to late afternoon, and these birds are literally gobbling everywhere. So naturally, I'm fired up. And Dino was coming down for opening day, which was pretty sick. So I was excited to, be able to have him down here and kind of show him what I've been up against for the last year or so on this property, how it hunts, how it lays out, and the whole 9 yards. I was just excited to have kind of host Dean down here and get him, that new experience that I've been experiencing for the past year now. Well, opening day comes around. We've got birds fired up all around us. We call the couple in. They got to like 50, 60 yards. And unfortunately, they didn't see the decoys, or I don't really know. Maybe they didn't like the decoys. But they kind of went back to where they came from. We heard them gobble all the way back to where they came from. 2 gunshots. Hey, neighbor and his son doubled up. More power to them. God bless and congratulations. That had to be an awesome opening day for that family. So we got out of that spot. We go back. We're going back to the truck. Fired up 2 more birds. Had them circle us at 60, 70 yards. Couldn't get a shot at either of them. But it was an insanely eventful opening morning. I could tell Dean was pleasantly surprised and shocked at the amount of action that we had down there, at the amount of birds that were down there. And so for the next week, I'm playing cat and mouse with these birds, and I'm self-filming. I'm going at it by myself. This property sets up in a very, very great way for whitetail hunting, because it is the 25 acres of bedding and thick cover that is in a lot of the surrounding area. There's not a whole lot more like bedding and real thick, gnarly cover. And that's pretty much what this whole property is. It's a couple of really dense cedar thickets. It's high grasses. It's little trees. There's a couple big oaks that are kind of on the outskirts, but there's a groomed path that goes around the entire outside of this property. And that's really the only spot that you could set up the decoys in order for a turkey to see them and try and call them into a setup that way. It's a great spot for hens to go nest, but it's really not that good of a property to, like, the turkeys aren't going to conjugate on this property because it's so thick. The hens will come in there and nest. The gobblers, or the toms will literally, and they are roosted all around this property, like 360 degrees around this property. But it's not like, it's very difficult to call them in there. A couple sides are surrounded by fence, so the turkeys would have to somehow cross the fence, and the only way over those fences is to go over it. Like, they can't get under, they can't get through, the fences are too tight. And once they're kind of in the middle, like I said, it's all thick in there. So it's like they don't, other than the hens nesting, there's not a huge reason for like a gobbler to come in there. They'll come to the outskirts of it. They'll strut around the outskirts of it. They'll strut around, in some of the adjacent fields. But I was finding it really difficult to call a bird into where I needed them to get into so I could, number one, get footage, and number two, be successful. I was calling birds into, like, from the neighbor's field within shooting distance into the field. They wouldn't jump over the fence. I was calling them into the wood line. They wouldn't like come through the threshold of brush and stuff like that to get onto the path to see the decoys. But I was seeing birds, I was hearing birds every time I was there. I witnessed 5 different birds getting shot. The one day I was sitting there, and I literally got there a little bit late. I get out of the truck. I'm listening for like 5-10 minutes, and all of a sudden these birds start going off, and they're not far. So I literally set up probably 70 or 80 yards from my truck, and I get in, I set up. The birds are literally lighting up. The day before, I had seen 3 longbeards in the field that they seemed to be roosting by or near. So I'm assuming that it was all 3 of them, and you could tell there was at least 3 birds in the group. I mean, the gobbles were rolling throughout the Tennessee hills down there, And it was like when one would stop gobbling, the next one would start, and then the next one and the next one. It was just rolling over and over and over and over, gobbling again. And so naturally I'm fired up. I'm thinking I'm going to be in the game. I'm ready to roll. I'm like, hell yeah, these things fly down. I'm making a couple soft yelps, learning how to speak the language. And all of a sudden, like from behind me, I hear I hear a hen get real loud, real raspy, real like wild, like the fly down cackle. And that literally lit these birds up. They were fired up. They were already fired up, but after that fly down cackle, that this hen was doing, they were on one. Like they would not stop gobbling. So they do that for the next probably 10 minutes until I hear them fly down into the field that is behind me. There's a strip of woods probably like 100 yards wide, and then there's another field, and they were roosted on the opposite field line from that, if that makes any sense. So when I heard them fly down, I assumed they flew down into the field, and a lot of times, they would come my way, but out from behind me, and I'd catch them strutting up in the front part of this property or whatever. But they flew down. I literally it was a dead silent morning. I could hear them fly out of the tree. Well, I'm like, they're down. And it literally couldn't have been a minute later. Boom! Scared the living shit out of me. Literally scared the shit out of me because I had no idea that anybody was there. And the fly down cackle worked. It was him. It was whoever was in the woods behind me, which they were within 100 yards, hammered this bird, and yeah, the fly down cackle worked. So I learned a little something during that hunt. But about a minute later, I heard another gunshot, and I don't know if they got two birds. I don't know what happened, but I'm assuming they got two. But it was kind of wind out of my sails at that point because we're like 4 or 5 days into the season. 4 of the local birds have already gotten shot, at least to my knowledge. And I'm thinking, man, like that we're dwindling the population here. Like I gotta get on something pretty quick. Otherwise, I'm probably gonna lose an opportunity because we're running out of birds here. Well, a couple hunts go by and I was still hearing, I'd hear a gobble here and there. I hear one bird fire up. I'd catch a bird cruising, whatever. But nothing real close. And then the next week of the season, which was the beginning of last week, I had a morning just like opening day morning with Dean, where I got there. I was there early. It's a very calm morning, and all of a sudden, the wood starts to light up, and there are birds gobbling in every single direction. And I'm like, this is insane. Like, this is legitimately insane. I'm pretty confident that 4 birds have already left the building. The landowner texted me the day or two prior to this and said that he had heard another shot at like 7 or 7:30 in the morning. So I'm assuming that was another bird going down. So call it 5 that have gone down. And on this particular morning, I'm listening to at least 5 more light up in the timber. So I go chasing these birds and back and forth, whatever, with the one. I literally played cat and mouse with the one for like 3 hours that morning. He had to have gobbled a couple hundred times. I mean, he would not stop. He had to be alone. It had to be an older bird. He was just not very committal, but he was very vocal in the fact that I think what he was doing was gobbling in one spot, trying to coax me as the hen to him. And I'm obviously trying to do the same thing to him, and both of us are being stubborn and not moving, so nothing's really happening. And that went on for about 3 hours. I then went and got another bird fired up at the front of the property, called him in, watched him strut around. He actually ended up linking up with 4 different hens, and after that, he shut up. I watched him from afar for a while. There was really no way I could sneak in on him, especially by myself with camera equipment. And so that opportunity kind of flew by the wayside too. But once again, another day, a lot of action, and I just feel like I'm right in the middle of the game with all these birds, and it's just a matter of time. So I give it a day off. I go back, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday last week, and I go back into the back where I had the bird fired up the hunt prior. He was talking again, but just very seldomly. It was kind of a rainy, like dreary morning. He was the only bird that I heard that morning, so I was kind of putting all my eggs in one basket, just kind of going towards him. I called, a couple times, and he would answer, and I would shut up, and I would hear him gobble every, 5 to 10 minutes maybe. And once he flew down, he kind of that spaced out even more. And I sat there and kind of played with him for about, a couple hours till 8:15. And he kind of shut up, went back up to the front of the property, and I had 2 birds fired up. So the one bird, called him in to about 150, 200 yards, and literally perfect timing. As I call him in, I watched him literally link up with 2 hens, and that was it. I'm like, as soon as he did that, he shut up. Well, I had another bird fired up very far away, and it was funny because every time I would call, he would answer right away. And it only took about 3 calls for me to realize that the gobbles were getting closer. Well, I'm literally sitting up against a tree, and I'm sitting up against a fence row. The fence, the briars and everything right around the fence are super thick. So it almost looks like the fence is like covered in vines and everything, covered in foliage. You could barely see the fence, and you could barely see through it. And parts of that get pretty thick to where it's like 10 to 12 feet wide. So I like trimmed myself a little cove back under this tree that's right up against the fence. And it's the perfect little cover and little self-filming spot because I carved out a little lane in front of me. I got the decoys right out in front of me. And basically I'm just trying to call these birds into this little opening, that's right in front of me there. And it's kind of a central point of the property where, I'm up a little bit higher in the elevation, and from up there, when you make a call, it kind of ripples throughout the valleys and stuff, and you really can get stuff to answer from pretty far away. Well, I get this bird fired up, 3 different gobbles. I could tell he was coming closer, and I just shut up. Well, he cut the distance quickly, and I'm sitting there up against this fence, and all of a sudden, I hear beep, 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 beep. And I'm like, I know that's a turkey. I'm like, where is that? Like, that is right on me. And I literally very, very slowly peek my head over my right shoulder, and there is a gobbler on the other side of this fence, maximum 10 to 12 yards away, max. And he is literally basically his energy was telling me that he is making noise to try and get the hen to make noise, or try and get the hen to make another noise so that he knew exactly where she was at. Although he literally came right to the freaking call. I mean, this bird was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of yards away. The fact that he pinpointed that call literally exactly was extremely, extremely impressive to me, and taught me a little something about how smart and how keen these turkeys really are. Well, he literally comes right up to the fence behind me. Mind you, I'm sitting against the tree, which is up against the fence. Like, this bird, when I kid you not, I could have literally put my gun barrel through the fence and he could have pecked it. That's how close he was. I'm not moving. The Rocky Venator camo is just keeping me concealed, and this bird is looking for a hen. So he comes to the fence, and then he takes the fence and he walks all the way away from me where I can't see him anymore, because once again, the briars and all the foliage that's right on the fence basically keeps it concealed. And you can't really see through it. But there's a couple openings in the fence where I was hoping once he got down far enough that he could peek through and maybe he would see the decoys and come on over. Well, he kind of disappears, goes all the way, and I could still hear him making the noise like he's definitely keenly looking for the hen. He gets all the way to the other far corner, and this is basically a square field. It's probably about 110, 120 yards wide, but it's square. So he gets to the other end. I lose him, and then he starts making his way paralleling the fence line right behind me and going kind of away from me. And as I see him over, like on that other side of the field, probably 120, 150 yards away, I like slowly grabbed the slate call. I made a little noise, and he fired up right away again. He turns around. He comes back to that corner of the fence. I lose him again. And then he marches out into the middle of the field, and the field kind of has this high point out in the middle, and he gets right up onto that high point into the middle of the field, and he's looking around, and all of a sudden he kind of started running towards the fence. I'm like, here he goes. He's going to fly over. This bird takes flight. I instantly hit record on the camera because I'm thinking that he's literally going to just fly over and plop right down right in front of me, right in front of the decoys. As soon as he lands, he sees the decoys. I'm already recording, ready to roll, and it is a wrap, baby. It is a wrap. Send it home. Start the fryer, bread the cutlets. We're eating tonight, baby. We are eating. Well, no. This bird takes off. I kind of lose him in the trees, and then he comes out over the property, and he is just soaring like 100 feet in the air, and he just soars into the middle of this property. And I just slowly see him go down in the middle of this property, like another 150, 200 yards away. I'm like, man, what the hell was that? Like, why did he do that? And he flew kind of right into the thickest part of the property. I'm like, what the hell was that? That was so crazy. So I give it a second. I'm like, maybe he goes down in there, but maybe he's going to circle back, and come back in. Well, I give it a couple minutes. I don't hear nothing. I strike the call again, and he fires up, and now he's all the way on the back side of the property from me. And he obviously, he flew down, he went and he walked away from me. I don't know what that was about or why that happened, but I did fire him back up, and I turned him to come back towards me, and I could hear him gobbling right below me. And then all of a sudden, he just shut up. And I sat there for over an hour just waiting for that bird to come back, thinking that he was going to come in silent again, and it just never happened. And I'm like, my goodness. But this whole time, I've been watching YouTube videos, I've been doing research, I've been learning how to speak the language, because one of my frustrations with turkey hunting for myself is and was the fact that I didn't feel like I could speak the language. I didn't feel like I could make the right call to entice the turkey to come in. I could make a call to sound like a turkey, but there's a difference between sounding like a turkey and actually coaxing a gobbler in. And I was learning that very quickly. I'm terrible at a diaphragm call. I can barely make noise on one of them damn things. And I was focusing a lot of my efforts on trying to do that and trying to not master, but just trying to be able to make a call on a diaphragm call, because you can imagine as you're self-filming, you got your gun in one hand, you got the camera in another hand. Well, that pretty much takes up both your hands. Now, how are you going to call? Well, a diaphragm call is the best option. So for self-filming, it's really the most conducive for me and for us to use. Well, it got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I'm not like, this is going to take far too long, and I don't have the time. I got a box call that sounds pretty good. I got a slate call. I got a glass call. Both of those I feel like are my best of the best calls in my bag. For me, they're the easiest to use. They're the ones that I can feel like I can make the best sounds off of. I just need to start understanding what sounds to make and when. So I start watching YouTube videos. Literally, I got a 45 to 50 minute drive to my hunting property to this lease every morning. I got YouTube videos on. I got podcasts on. I'm just taking in the knowledge on any of my drives to and from at night when I'm sitting on the couch, the whole 9 yards. And so I started to learn how to speak the language a little bit, especially on the slate and especially on the box call, and that was starting to work. Case in point, I called this turkey literally within 10 yards right behind me. I mean, if I would have had a full 360 ability to shoot, like, that's a dead bird all day long. But, you know, it is what it is. Property lines, just how the property sets up, it didn't work out. We live to play another day. So I give it another break, and 2 days later, I go back to the same spot. I only had mid-morning to hunt, so I got down to the property around 10 o'clock. I had until about 1 o'clock to hunt, and it's just kind of how the day lined up for me with work and stuff like that. Well, I get there. Right when I get there, I hear a gobble, like literally on cue. I mean, I open the truck door, and I hear a gobble. And so I get my shit ready very quickly. I dive bomb it into the makeshift blind, same one right up against the fence. It's the closest one to my truck. It's easy access. And I set up the decoys, and let's go, baby. So that bird, he's talking. I got another bird talking kind of in the same direction that I called the one in from 2 days prior. But he was far. I get a little aggressive on the box call. That far bird fires up again, and I'm like, he heard that. He heard it again. I'm just going to shut up. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to sit here, and I'm just going to see if either one of these birds makes their way. Well, sitting up against the fence again, and I peek to my right, and all the way on the other side of the field, working his way up towards that back corner, is another bird. I catch his red head just bobbing. I'm like, oh my gosh. He came in silent again. So he gets all the way to the corner where I couldn't see him again. And I take the slate call out, and I just give him a couple soft little yip, 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 yip. Nothing. Don't hear him at all. But I'm like, it's a quiet day. He's within 120 yards. He had to have heard that. So I'm just sitting there waiting. And in the back of my mind, I'm going, this motherfucker is going to walk literally right up against this fence, right down to me. And I gave it about 3 or 4 minutes, and lo and behold, all of a sudden, red head, big beard, right, literally feathers against the fence, walking right down to me. And the first time I see him, it's like 15 to 16 yards. He gets right down to me, right next to me again, gun barrel poking distance again, right behind me, into the corner of that field. And once again, he starts going, burp, 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 burp. And he's looking for the hen. And I'm peeking over my shoulder. I'm not moving. I'm like, come on, dude. Come on. Like, see the decoy, fly over, do something. I can't. Once again, this would be probably a good scenario to have a diaphragm call or the ability to use one, because if that diaphragm call is already in my mouth, I can I can do some soft calls to him, and then at least he knows, like, I'm on the other side of the fence. I'm strapped right now. I can't grab the box call. I can't grab my slate. Can't grab anything. I can't move. Like, I've got to just stay as still as possible and let this play out. Well, he's just kind of putzing around back there at like 10, 12 yards, and all of a sudden I realize there is another bird. There's another gobbler with him right behind me. Now there's 2 birds at the back corner of this fence right behind me. Both are searching for me, for the hen, and they're literally within 15 yards, both of them. Well, they just kind of circle each other back there, and then they didn't hear any noise. They didn't hear anything, but they did that for a couple minutes. They kind of start walking over, like, dead away from me, back over the crest of the hill. And as soon as they disappeared, I kind of called a little bit again, and I couldn't fire them back up. And I'm just like, my gosh. It got a little windy after that. I did a little running and gunning after that, But that was the rest of the morning for me. And I'm just like, my gosh, you guys, like, I'm proud. In one breath, I'm proud of myself because I'm learning to speak the language. I'm learning how and when to call. And is it perfect yet? Absolutely not. But it's working now, and that's the biggest thing. Like, it's working now. So I'm working into a groove of like, okay, I'm starting to learn. Okay, if a gobbler cuts the call off, or if he calls within seconds. If he gobbles within seconds after your call, obviously he heard it. Obviously that excited him. If he gobbles after that by himself, likely he's coming in your direction. If he doesn't, if he shuts up, then, it's still, I think, important to be patient and let it ride a little bit, because especially that mid-morning time, they will gobble once, maybe twice, and they'll come looking. But that mid-morning time, what I've found out, when you fire them up during that 9 to noon hour, like, more than likely, if you call and they fire up, they're not with hens anymore. The hens that they're with have already been bred. So they're looking for round 2, and they're most likely going to be coming for round 2. Anyway, learning to speak the language. I feel a little bit better about that. Called 2 more birds into literally gun poking distance again, and still can't get it done. So that's the frustrating part, is how am I going to get these birds onto this piece of property? Like, how am I going to get them here? Meanwhile, there's another bird that I would poke out of the blind, and I would watch this bird strutting in the front of this guy's house, like way up front. I mean, a couple hundred yards away up this guy's driveway. So his driveway, he's got like about a 20-yard area on either side that is very, very groomed clover. And it's 300 to 400 yard long driveway all the way to the road. And there's big hardwoods on either side of it. So I would watch that bird midway up the driveway. He would cross one of the birds I was chasing would cross up there all the time. And I couldn't figure out, like, from where I'm standing, if I would get out of the blind and I would go out to the decoys, I could look directly down the driveway, and if I was standing at the decoys, I could see the bird. Well, it's just kind of over a little hump where he would come out. And so at his level, only 3.5 feet off the ground, he can't see over that hump to see the decoys. Because I was wondering, I'm like, why is this bird not seeing these decoys and coming in? So, talked to Dino a little bit. He's like, dude, why don't you put at least the hen decoy 40 to 50 yards closer to where he comes out at. That way, when he sees the hen decoy, maybe he'll want to come to the hen. And if he gets to the hen, then he sees the Jake decoy in front of in front of where my setup is. And, he wants to come and kick the Jake's ass, whatever. I'm like, that's not a horrible idea. So I'm supposed to be going to Atlanta on Saturday. Well, I'm going to Atlanta Saturday for the Guardians-Braves game, meeting my buddy down there. I got to drop my dog off in the morning, and then I'm just heading out. Well, my buddy who's watching my dog says, hey, I got something to do tomorrow morning. Would you mind dropping Nellie off tonight? This is Friday. I'm like, sure. So I drop her off that night, and then I'm like, well, I'm literally driving right past the lease going to Georgia. Why would I not just get up early and put a couple hours of hunting in and then drive the rest of the way to Georgia? So that's what I did. Got all my shit together Friday night, packed the truck, and got up at 4, headed down to the lease. And when I got out of the truck, I was a little discouraged because it was pretty windy. And I'm like, man, it's going to be very difficult for any bird to hear me. It's going to be difficult for me to hear any bird. And so I kind of stood by the truck for a little while, waited for it to start getting light, wanted to listen and just kind of see if I could hear anything on the limb. And I heard one bird very, very distant, way, way in the back of the property. And I'm like, man, I don't know. Like, do I go back there and chase this thing? I feel like it's the same bird that I played cat and mouse with earlier in the week. He just kind of got to a spot and he would gobble forever and then he would never commit. Like, do I want to do that in this wind? So I ended up setting up in the same spot up against the fence. And I'm like, you know what? This bird that crosses the driveway, like, let me just sit here. Let me listen. Maybe he'll fire up. Hopefully he's roosted in the same spot on the neighbor's property right at the edge of the field. And maybe once he flies down, he'll fire up. So I did that. I set the decoy up, like Dean said. I set the hen decoy up 50 yards closer to where he comes out at. I set the Jake decoy up in front of the blind, and I also have my turkey fan from the bird that I shot last year. Uncle Jay made me this wooden plaque. It's got the beard. It's got the spurs. It's actually got the whole foot and the spurs on it, and it's got the fan. So I have that plaque literally with me. I'm like, worst case scenario too, if I do see him, maybe I could flash him the fan and coax him in that way. So I'm sitting there, half hour goes by, 45 minutes. I haven't heard a gobble yet. Well, all of a sudden around 6:20, I hear what I think is that bird. And he's basically back where I thought he was roosted, or at least that's kind of where the noise sounded like it came from. So he gobbles. I'm like, was that it's so windy. I'm like, was that a gobble? And then about a minute or two later, he gobbles again. I'm like, oh, okay, he's fired up. So I get a little aggressive on the call, box call, light him up a little bit. And right after I call, he answers. I'm like, he heard it. I'm done. I shut up. And so I'm waiting. And at this point, I turn the GoPro on that was over my left shoulder. I take another GoPro and I go out to the edge of the little opening field that I'm sitting on. And I put the GoPro on a limb, and I've got the fan in one hand, and I've got the gun in the other. And I'm just kind of peeking around the corner of the wood line, looking down the driveway toward where this bird comes from, because I'm like, if he comes out there, I'm going to flash him this fan and see what happens. 15 minutes goes by, and here he comes. He comes strutting out into the clover, and he's just strutting. And he's probably 60 yards from the hen decoy at this point, little over 100 yards from me. And so he's strutting, and when he came out, I'm standing up at the edge of the wood line, so I'm kind of like trying to peek. I'm trying to keep myself concealed by staying inside the wood line, but keep my eyes on him enough. I'm like, I've got to be able to crouch down before I flash this fan to him, because I want to be ready. I don't know if I flash the fan to him and he just starts bolting, I don't know what I'm going to do. So he struts and he goes away from me, tail feathers away from me, couldn't see me. I squat down. As soon as I squat down, I raise that fan up. He turns to where he's facing me, and I'm kind of just slowly moving the fan back and forth with my arm, stretch Armstrong all the way out, basically facing the fan outside of the wood line. Well, he comes out of strut. He peeks his head up as high as it could go, and I'm like, he saw it. So he goes back into strut, and he comes strutting all the way up to the hen decoy, and he's just chesting this hen decoy. Now he's at like 50 yards. And meanwhile, like, my gun's in my left hand. I'm hanging out with the fan still in my right hand. I'm not ready to shoot yet. I'm like, I got to lure this thing up to me, and maybe he'll go to the Jake decoys. Well, I keep the fan out there. This bird's strutting around the hen decoy. I kind of move the fan a little bit. He kind of comes out of strut, but he's still got that like feather puff to him, He's got like I'm the man of this bitch. And he comes to the wood line and he starts fast walking right to me. I literally put the fan down right at the edge of the woods. I sneak back in as I'm grabbing my gun, click the safety off to get ready, and now I'm in the wood line where I can't see if he's coming up or not. I don't know if me dropping the fan messed him up. I don't know. Well, I catch flashes coming through the bushes, and he's coming. And he gets right to the opening and like goes into full strut, kind of looks at my fan on the ground, and me and him lock eyes at, like, I'm telling you, it was no more than 12, 13 feet. He was right there, staring into my soul. And as quick as he, like, stared at me and looked at me, mind you, I'm on my knees. I'm crouched down. I'm just trying to look like a bush. I'm not moving. As soon as he, like, stared at me, looked at me, his focus went right back to the Jake decoy, and he started to waddle out there. Meanwhile, GoPro from up above me is catching him come all the way in from the hen decoy. GoPro up against the fence, back by the tree where I'm sitting, is facing out towards the Jake decoy and literally catching him coming from left to right in front of me, and then working out to the Jake decoy. So although the main camera is not rolling, I'm capturing this thing perfectly. Well, he goes strutting out to the Jake decoy, and I'm like, well, I got to get up and be able to maneuver to get a shot. And as I kind of get up and kneel, I make a little noise. He comes out of strut, looks up, catches me. At that point, it's too late. I pull up and I shoot, and I shot right over the top of his head. And he friggin' gobbled and just starts taking off running. And he gets like 3 strides into the run, and it was just like, it was like leading a coyote running through a field. I led that bastard, and I squeezed and just rolled his ass on the second shot. It was freaking awesome. It was freaking awesome. I went absolutely nuts, ballistic. Wait till you guys see this footage. If it doesn't come out tonight, it's coming out tomorrow. But you've got to, I highly encourage you to watch the whole process from opening day. We've got probably 5 or 6 episodes prior to this kill episode, but from opening day through the whole time, the grind was amazing, and it all played a role in the position that I put myself in and getting to that point. But I run out there, he's done, pick this bird up. He's got massive, almost 1.5 inch spurs. I mean, the first and only actual quote-unquote limb hanger that I've ever shot in my life, and I am absolutely charged up. It's not even 7 o'clock yet. I'm going to Atlanta for the Guardians-Braves game later that day, and I just pulled off the unthinkable, filming this all by myself. It was insane. It was insane. So I take photos, I do my thing, I celebrate, hoot and holler. I'm just enjoying the moment. I stayed back there for about an hour or so and take pictures, this and that. I got to go to Walmart. I got to get a cooler. I got to get ice. I ended up breasting this bird out in the middle of a Red Lobster parking lot in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Breasting this thing out, getting them on ice in my new cooler, all taken care of. Got myself breakfast and on the road to Atlanta. Watched the Guardians get an extra inning victory on Saturday night. Drove back Sunday, happier than a freaking clam. It was a monumental, and it was an epic journey in the turkey woods. It was an extreme grind the entire time, but it was all worth it. I am so grateful for the hardships of the hunt, for how the hunt challenged me to be better, for how the hunt challenged me to get curious about how to speak the language to these birds. And it worked. It worked. One call, he fired up. Aggressive call, he fired up. I shut up. He came in to where the hens had been strutting. The decoy setup worked perfect. The fan drew him in. And it was probably the most epic turkey hunt that I've ever pulled off. And once again, the journey of it all is what means the most to me. And what means even more is that I brought you all along with me. So I would be so grateful if you guys would go and check out that journey, check out the hunt, and let me know what you think. It was absolutely amazing. Tagged that bird in Tennessee. Uncle Jay actually got another one and tagged out later that morning. So it was just an epic day for the squad. We got 5 birds down already for the squad. Uncle Jay's tagged out. Chris is tagged out. Your boy's got a tag filled. And today, New York season opens and Dino is out. So just an amazing start to the 2024 season. The Will Not Be Denied tour is in full effect. We will not be denied in 2024. We've set that precedent up front, and it has held true until now. And it's just been an amazing journey so far. So, yeah, pretty awesome, pretty proud, pretty grateful for the opportunity. And, yeah, I'd love to have you guys check it out and watch it whenever you get a chance. But without further ado, my camera's about to run out of battery, so I don't want to cut y'all too short. I want to get cut off short, but that's a wrap, folks. We're going to continue turkey season. We appreciate you coming all along with us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for the latest and greatest updates from your boys. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and follow us on here on Spotify as well. And we will see y'all right back here next Wednesday for another episode of Goose Chasing, baby. We appreciate y'all, as always, listening along and following along to our journey. Cannot thank you enough for that. And, yeah, we're grateful. We love you. Hope your turkey season's going good. And we will see y'all soon. God bless.